It had been a long day, and the heat was unbearable. The Arizona sun had drained every ounce of energy from my body as I stood by the roadside, my car stubbornly refusing to start. I had called for a tow truck, but the estimated wait time was over an hour. With no shade and my phone battery at a measly 5%, I was left stranded, my only company being the occasional car whizzing by on the highway. That was when he pulled up. A large, rusted pickup truck slowed to a stop beside me, and the window rolled down to reveal a man in his mid-40s. He had a rugged appearance, tan skin, and a friendly smile that revealed a slight gap between his front teeth. "You need some help?" he asked, his voice carrying the twang of someone who had spent their life in the Southwest. I hesitated. Every warning my mother had ever given me about talking to strangers rang in my ears. But the sun was relentless, and the idea of waiting out there any longer made my stomach churn. I nodded. "Yeah, my car won't start. Tow truck's taking forever." He motioned toward his truck. "I got some tools in the back. Maybe I can take a look?" Relief washed over me as I stepped toward his truck. I opened the passenger door, expecting to sit down while he rummaged for tools. But as I climbed in, I noticed something odd. The keys were in the ignition, yet the truck wasn't running. The air inside was surprisingly cool, a stark contrast to the sweltering heat outside. I turned to ask him about it, but before I could speak, he opened his door, slid inside, and shut it behind him. We just sat there. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. The only sounds were our quiet breaths and the distant hum of passing cars. I tensed, my heartbeat accelerating. "You seem nervous," he finally said, resting his hands on the steering wheel but making no move to start the truck. I swallowed hard. "Should I be?" He exhaled through his nose, a small chuckle escaping him. "I guess that depends on whether you believe in fate." My grip tightened on the door handle. "What do you mean?" He turned his head, looking at me with eyes that were unreadable, but not threatening. "What if I told you that you were meant to get in this truck today? That everything that happened, your car breaking down, the heat, me driving by at just the right moment, was all leading to this?" A chill ran down my spine. "That sounds ominous." He smiled again, though this time it carried something different, something knowing. Or maybe it's just life, unfolding the way it's supposed to. I glanced at the door handle, calculating how fast I could get out if I needed to. "So, are you going to help with my car or not?" He nodded slowly. "I will. But first, I need you to trust me." The way he said it sent a shiver through me. It wasn't a demand, nor a threat. It was a statement. A challenge. I could have bolted, could have run back to my car, locked the doors, and waited for the tow truck. But something unexplainable, kept me in that seat. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe, just maybe, it was fate. I took a deep breath and let go of the door handle. "All right," I said. "Let's see where this goes." And just like that, everything changed. What followed was an exchange of stories, an unexpected connection forming between two strangers who, under normal circumstances, would have never crossed paths. His name was Jake, and he told me he had spent most of his life fixing up cars and driving trucks across the country. He spoke about his experiences with a mix of nostalgia and regret, as if he had lived too many years too fast and found himself at a standstill. I listened, drawn into his words despite my initial apprehension. In return, I shared a bit about myself, about how I had been on my way to visit my sister in Phoenix when my car decided to betray me. Minutes turned into an hour, and the sun began to dip toward the horizon. Jake eventually reached into the back seat, pulling out a toolkit. "All right, let's see if we can get you back on the road," he said, pushing open the door and stepping out. I followed, watching as he popped the hood of my car and leaned over to inspect the engine. He worked with precision, muttering to himself as he checked different parts. I found myself admiring his skill, the ease with which he maneuvered through a problem I wouldn't even know where to start with. "Looks like it's your battery," he finally said, wiping his hands on a rag. "It's not completely dead, but it's struggling. I can give you a jump, but you'll need to get a new one soon." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you. Seriously, I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped." He shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. Sometimes, you just gotta be in the right place at the right time. As he hooked up the jumper cables, I realized how different this moment felt compared to when I had first climbed into his truck. The tension had eased, the unease replaced with gratitude. Jake wasn't a threat. He was just a guy who had stopped to help, and somehow, in that short span of time, we had shared something rare, an honest human connection. My car roared back to life after a few minutes, and I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Jake unhooked the cables and closed the hood. "You're good to go. Just don't turn it off until you get somewhere safe." I nodded, feeling an odd sense of disappointment that our encounter was ending. "I owe you one." He chuckled. "Just pay it forward." I smiled and climbed into my car. As I pulled away, I glanced in the rearview mirror, watching as Jake stood by his truck, hands on his hips, watching me drive off. The road stretched ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't just moving, I was going somewhere. And maybe, just maybe, fate had a hand in it after all.